The Galactic Council chamber falls silent as Commander Elena Santos steps forward, her footsteps echoing across the crystalline floor. The sound seems to amplify her isolation, a sole human in a vast alien conclave. 12 pairs of alien eyes, some compound, some bioluminescent, some barely recognizable as sensory organs, track her movement with a mixture of curiosity and thinly veiled contempt. "The humans have arrived," announces Grand Arbiter Zexcaltar, his voice resonating through translators in 27 languages. "Late to the stars, late to this chamber, as expected." Santos swallows the retort building in her throat. Earth's first diplomatic mission was already precarious enough without antagonizing their hosts. Behind her, Lieutenant Rojas shifts nervously, his knuckles white around the ceremonial gift case. Artifacts from Earth's various cultures, carefully selected to represent humanity's diversity. The gesture now seems painfully inadequate. The Curiosity had barely survived the journey after a navigation error nearly sent them through an unmapped pulsar. The diplomatic vessel, Earth's proudest achievement just months earlier, now looks embarrassingly primitive beside the living bioships and quantum-phased cruisers docked outside. Their hastily patched hull still bears scorch marks from the near disaster. "We appreciate the Council's invitation," Santos manages, her voice steady despite the weight of 7 billion human hopes resting on her shoulders. Earth is honored to join the galactic community. A ripple of something between amusement and pity passes through the gathered dignitaries. A Varaxian delegate whispers to his companion, their universal translators intentionally muted, but Santos catches the universal body language of mockery. The introduction ceremony becomes increasingly uncomfortable as each council species showcases their evolutionary pinnacle. The Varaxians demonstrate matter-to-energy conversion with casual flicks of their appendages, transforming solid objects into pure light, and back again. A trio of Medusan representatives forms a telepathic link that allows them to regenerate severed limbs within seconds. A Tellurit child, brought specifically to emphasize the point, solves mathematical problems that would take Earth's supercomputers centuries. With each demonstration, the gulf between humanity and these ancient civilizations grows more apparent. Santos feels a bead of sweat trail down her spine beneath her dress uniform. "And what?" asks Zexcaltar with a barely concealed smirk that transcends species differences. "Does humanity bring to this assembly of greatness?" The chamber falls silent. Santos glances at her nervous crew before stepping forward. This moment would define humanity's place in the cosmos. She activates a small holographic display showing Earth's turbulent history, ice ages, continental drift, mass extinctions, and humanity's rise against all odds. "Throughout our history," she begins, voice finding strength, "humans have looked at the impossible and said simply, 'Behold this,' then changed everything." The hologram shifts to show humanity's achievements: the wheel, the pyramids, flight, space travel, each accomplished despite overwhelming obstacles. The gathered ambassadors exchange glances that translate universally as pity. A few neural networks pulse in what might be the equivalent of laughter. "How quaint," says the Varaxian Prime, 4 hands gesturing dismissively. "Perhaps in a few millennia, you'll have something meaningful to contribute." 3 hours later, Earth is granted observational membership, with restrictions so severe they border on insulting. As the human delegation is escorted to their quarters, noticeably smaller than those of other species, Santos clenches her fists. "Commander," Lieutenant Rodas asks quietly, seeing the storm in her eyes. Santos takes a deep breath. "They think we're primitive because we haven't perfected their technologies," she says. "They've forgotten something crucial about survival." "What's that, Commander?" "Sometimes being imperfect is the perfect advantage. The humiliation burns, but somewhere in that burn is the fire that has always pushed humanity forward. We'll show them what 'behold this' really means." The Council emergency klaxons blare, a piercing, multitonal wail designed to cut through the sensory perception, ranges of 17 different species. Lieutenant Commander Jackson Chen winces at the assault on his eardrums as holographic displays materialize throughout the station, bathing the crowded emergency chamber in ominous red light. The projections show a rogue pulsar, its deadly beams sweeping through space like a cosmic lighthouse of destruction, hurtling toward the densely populated Keplerian corridor. The visualization tracks potential impact trajectories in sickening detail. 17 systems, hundreds of worlds, trillions of lives. Temporal estimate to first contact with populated worlds, 47 standard cycles, announces the Tellarite quantum analyst, her multifaceted eyes rapidly processing data streams. Projected casualties in first wave, 8.7 billion sentients. In the Grand Emergency Chamber, Chen watches from the shadows as the galaxy's greatest minds frantically debate. 3 months into humanity's observational membership, he's become accustomed to remaining silent during council proceedings, but something about the proposed solution strikes him as unnecessarily complex. The Varaxian Imperator pounds the table with all 4 fists, creating a thunderous boom that silences the chamber momentarily. Evacuations must begin immediately. Even with our fastest ships, we'll lose 30% of the population. A Medusan collective mind, representing 3,000 linked consciousnesses, undulates in distress. The energy requirements for system-wide shields would drain our stellar converters within days. We cannot protect everyone. The Telluric Consortium presents its findings, 78 potential solutions, all requiring decades of implementation or sacrificing entire worlds as acceptable losses. Their multifaceted eyes avoid meeting those of the species marked for extinction. Chen studies the simulation closely, fingers twitching as calculations run through his mind, while other observers from Earth maintain the respectful silence expected of them. Something about the pulsar's trajectory nags at him. He steps forward, earning immediate glares from Council security. Observational members aren't permitted to speak in emergency sessions. He does anyway. "I've been analyzing your models," he says, ignoring the Medusan representative's gasp of outrage. "Your solutions are too complex. You're trying to stop or shield against the pulsar. What if we simply nudge it? Silence the human," barks a Varaxian officer, mandibles clicking in irritation. This is beyond primitive comprehension. Council leader Zex Kalter raises a hand. "Let him speak," he says, eyes blinking in their unsettling sequence. The situation is dire enough to hear all perspectives, even unusual ones. The doomed may have their final words. Chen activates his crude holographic projector, interfacing awkwardly with the Council's advanced systems. The display flickers before stabilizing. "Behold this," he says simply. The display shows a surprisingly elegant solution, using the gravitational properties of strategically positioned space stations, existing ones requiring only minimal modification, to create a deflection corridor that would alter the pulsar's path by less than 1 degree. Not enough to stop it, just enough to guide it between inhabited systems. Preposterous. The Varaxian chief engineer's tentacles writhe in agitation, bioluminescent patterns flashing warning colors. "The energy requirements alone are within your current capabilities," Chen interrupts, swiping to reveal detailed calculations. "You've been thinking like immortals with unlimited time. Humans think like creatures with one short life to save others." The Tellarite delegates huddle, their neural networks processing rapidly. Equations flow between them in visible pulses of light. Their leader's voice carries unmistakable shock. "The mathematics are correct. The proposal requires only 0.034% of resources compared to our solutions. This could work." "Impossible," mutters the Varaxian engineer, but with less conviction. Chen meets his gaze steadily. "On Earth, we have a saying. Necessity is the mother of invention. Sometimes the simplest solution isn't the most obvious one." As the Council races to implement Chen's solution, The human delegation notices subtle shifts in how they're regarded. The dismissive glances become curious ones. The patronizing explanations give way to genuine questions. It isn't respect. Not yet. But it's the beginning of something that might become it. Quarantine breached on Medusa Prime. 17 million confirmed dead. Biomass integrity failing across planetary network. The emergency broadcasts echo across the Council station as screens throughout the medical wing display the unthinkable. Medusa Prime, a world whose inhabitants had conquered biological mortality 10,000 years ago, was dying. The crystalline structures of their cities fracture as their inhabitants' exoskeletons dissolve from within. The Medusan ambassador collapses during the emergency briefing, her crystalline exoskeleton already showing the telltale fracture patterns of the mysterious contagion. Medics rush forward, but stop short. No one knows how to treat this. The finest medical minds in the galaxy stand helpless before a disease that should be impossible. Dr. Amara Okafor watches from the human medical station, a facility previously regarded as quaint and obsolete. The Medusans, who had proudly showcased their biological immortality just months earlier, now face extinction. Their perfect immune systems, designed through millennia of careful evolution, are being systematically dismantled by a pathogen that seems to target that very perfection. This doesn't make sense, Okafor mutters, studying the reports flooding in. Their immune response should be adapting. She accesses the limited data permitted to observational members, searching for patterns. Something in the disease progression nags at her, a familiar signature she can't quite place, but reminiscent of certain terrestrial pathogens. I need to see their biological archives, she tells Commander Santos, who has arrived to check on Earth's medical team. They'll never grant access, Santos replies with a grimace. Their biological data is their most sacred possession. No non-Medusan has ever been allowed to view it. Then they'll die with their secrets intact, Okafor snaps, frustration evident in the tight lines around her eyes. She's been working 30 hours straight, analyzing the limited data available. This pathogen knows their immune response too well. It's like it was designed specifically to. An alert interrupts her. 6 hours later, as the death toll reaches 90 million, the Medusan sovereign herself appears at the human medical bay. Her once magnificent form, capable of reshaping at will, now struggles to maintain cohesion. Patches of her exoskeleton show the crystalline fractures that precede total structural collapse. We have 28 hours before our species reaches extinction threshold, she announces, her translator barely processing through her deteriorating neural pathways. Our most sacred knowledge for our survival. Help us. In the Medusan biological sanctum, a cathedral-like chamber where the accumulated genetic knowledge of 50,000 years is stored, Okafor works frantically. The dying Medusan geneticists watch with fading eyes as this primitive human, whose species still suffers from cancer and heart disease, delves into biological secrets they've spent millennia perfecting. The archives reveal the problem with devastating clarity. 10,000 years of careful genetic engineering had created immune systems so perfectly calibrated they had no capacity to adapt. Their response to any pathogen was identical, and identically vulnerable to this tailor-made plague. You engineered out randomness, Okafor mutters, studying cellular structures that hadn't changed in millennia. You're literally too perfect. With trembling hands, she hasn't slept in nearly 40 hours. She loads her portable sequencer with her own blood sample. The Medusans recoil at the primitive technology and the messy, imperfect genetic code it reveals. Your immune systems need to remember how to evolve, she explains to the horrified Medusan geneticists. She pulls up a comparison between human and Medusan immune responses, the human version chaotic, inefficient, and gloriously adaptable. The Medusan version a marvel of engineering that always executes identically. Behold this. On the central display, she shows a modified version of an ancient human practice, vaccination through controlled exposure. But her proposal goes further. integrating selective human immune responses into the Medusan genome. "This is sacrilege," hisses the Sovereign's chief geneticist, his fracturing form trembling with emotion. "You propose corrupting our perfect design with chaos. I propose saving your species with adaptation." Okafor counters, loading a syringe with a modified version of the pathogen combined with human immune factors. "Sometimes to survive, you must embrace imperfection." She meets the Sovereign's gaze steadily. "Your choice. Perfection or survival." The council chamber shakes as Droken Warmaster Kavex slams his ceremonial blade into the negotiation table, splitting the ancient artifact in two with a crack that silences even the most vocal delegates. The obsidian blade, forged in the heart of a dying star, quivers from the impact, its edge glowing with barely contained energy. 300 years of Felix theft cannot be washed away with your algorithm-derived compromises. Kavex roars, his scaled skin flushing crimson with rage patterns. The translator struggles to convey the complex honor layers in his dialect, but the fury requires no translation. "We will take what is ours." The Felix diplomats recoil, their luminous skin flaring danger patterns, rippling blues and violets that communicate emotional states more precisely than words ever could. The temperature in the room drops 10 degrees as their biology responds to perceived threat. "Then prepare for extinction," replies the Felix Harmony speaker, her translator struggling to process her ultrasonic response. Her crystalline form refracts light in patterns that make several species look away to avoid neural damage. "Our defensive grid has terminated 27 previous Droken invasions. The 28th will be your last." The situation had deteriorated over 14 days of increasingly hostile negotiations. What began as a territorial dispute over mining rights in the Cygnus Reach has devolved into an existential confrontation between two species whose communication styles are fundamentally incompatible. The Council's diplomatic AIs frantically recalculate, their centuries-refined peace algorithms failing as Kavex storms out, leaving claw marks in the reinforced flooring. Grand Arbiter Zex Kaltar's expression is grim. War between these advanced species would devastate half the quadrant. The Droken's planet-cleaving weaponry and the Felix's temporal defense grids ensure mutual destruction on an unprecedented scale. "The logical path has failed," admits the Tellurid mediator, her neural network visibly distressed by the computational failure. Conflict probability, 98.7%. Estimated casualties, 34 trillion sentients. From her observer's seat, Commander Santos studies the two species. The Drokens, reptilian warriors with rigid honor codes that turn insults into blood debts, and the Felix, empathic crystalline beings who experience emotions as physical sensations and cannot comprehend honor without empathy. Two completely incompatible communication styles. Santos has spent months observing Council diplomatic procedures, watching algorithms and predictive models fail to bridge fundamental cultural divides. Something about this situation reminds her of ancient Earth conflicts where technological solutions proved inadequate. "I request permission to attempt human-style mediation," Santos says, earning incredulous stares from the Council members present. "The primitive wishes to succeed where our diplomatic consortium has failed." The Medusan representative's laugh ripples through her translucent form. "Your species still has tribal warfare on your own planet. Perhaps that's precisely why we might help," Santos counters. "We understand conflict from the inside." Zex Kaltar's many eyes blink sequentially. A gesture Santos has learned indicates deep consideration. Conflict is now inevitable. We have nothing to lose from unconventional approaches. You have 12 hours before the Droken battle fleet mobilizes. 12 hours later, Santos stands in a chamber she's transformed with help from her crew. One half mimics a Droken heat rock arena where traditional challenges are resolved. The other half incorporates Felix crystalline meditation structures. The environmental controls create a temperature gradient that accommodates both species' comfort zones. Both delegations arrive with weapons and guards, expecting nothing but one final failed attempt before war. Vex's honor guard takes defensive positions, while Felix empaths generate protective resonance fields. All diplomatic algorithms have been deactivated, Santos announces, nodding to Lieutenant Chen, who disables the room's predictive systems. No recordings, no simulations, no predictive models. Today, we simply share a meal. She gestures to a long table where human crew members serve steaming dishes combining elements from both cultures. Is this a joke? Growls the Droken Warmaster, hand on his blade. In our culture, breaking bread together matters, Santos explains, meeting his reptilian gaze without flinching. Behold this. The Felix Harmony speaker's crystalline structure vibrates with skepticism. Food cannot resolve what logic failed to reconcile. Santos smiles. You'd be surprised what happens when diplomacy becomes personal rather than perfect. The Grand Gallery of the Galactic exhibition gleams with perfection, a vast crystalline dome designed to showcase the pinnacle of artistic achievement across civilizations. Varaxian-like sculptures calculated to 16 decimal places of harmonic precision cast mathematically perfect shadows. Tellurite symphonic equations produce sound patterns that stimulate precise emotional responses in any sentient brain. Medusan crystal formations grow in real time, each facet evolving through precisely calculated stages of symmetry. In the smallest, dimmest corner, practically an afterthought, the first ever human exhibition receives polite but dismissive attention from the galactic elite. Most visitors glance briefly at the primitive works before moving on to real art. A few linger just long enough to display the appropriate cultural courtesy. Kai Nakamura stands silently beneath a spotlight that flickers irregularly, a technical flaw the exhibition organizers haven't bothered to fix for the human display. A group of Varaxian critics loudly discuss the charming simplicity of human artistic expression within earshot. Observe the crude pigmentation techniques, says one, compound eyes barely registering the collection of seemingly random materials laid out on Nakamura's workstation. Physical paints, canvas, metal scraps, earth, water. They still apply color manually rather than manipulating molecular structures. One must make allowances for younger species, another replies, mandibles clicking in what translates as condescending amusement. Their neural structures haven't evolved sufficient capacity for true artistic perception. Nakamura remains silent, having endured 4 days of similar comments. As Earth's most celebrated multidisciplinary artist, they had been selected to represent humanity's creative potential. Now, surrounded by technological marvels that make human art seem childish by comparison, that responsibility weighs heavily. The chief curator approaches, a Tellurite whose neural network has categorized and evaluated every significant artwork created in the last 10 millennia. His biometric readings indicate he's allocating minimal cognitive resources to this interaction. The exhibition schedule indicates a demonstration of human technique. He states flatly, "Though I must inform you attendance projections are minimal." A small crowd has gathered nonetheless, mostly diplomats obligated to show interest in the newcomer species, and a few xenoanthropologists studying primitive creative development. Nakamura smiles, unexpected warmth in the expression. Art isn't about technique alone. They say, hands already in motion, selecting materials with practiced precision. Sometimes it's about embracing what can't be calculated. Their eyes meet the curator's compound gaze. Behold this. What follows defies the gallery's documentation systems. For 6 straight hours, Nakamura creates with a frenzy that draws an ever-growing crowd. Against all protocol, they incorporate physical elements from the gallery itself, capturing light from the Varaxian sculptures, resonance from Tellurite symphonics, reflections from Medusan crystals, all transformed through human hands into something new. The massive canvas transforms moment by moment. Japanese wabi-sabi embracing imperfection merges with West African symbolic narratives. European expressionism bleeds into Chinese philosophical balance. Techniques millennia apart on Earth collide on a single surface. The work shouldn't function, its elements too contradictory, its execution too spontaneous. yet it coheres with a raw power that defies analysis. As the work nears completion, something unprecedented occurs. A Varaxian art master, renowned for never having experienced emotion in his 400-year existence, begins to weep from all four eye clusters. A Tellurit neural collective reports system errors as their predictive algorithms fail to categorize what they're experiencing. The Medusan contingent's crystalline forms vibrate at frequencies never before recorded. The finished piece depicts the Galactic Council's formation, but through distinctly human eyes: messy, contradictory, painful, joyful, uncertain, and hopeful simultaneously. It captures not the event's perfection, but its imperfect magnificence. This is not art, the Tellurit chief curator finally announces, neural patterns visibly disrupted. It is something we have no classification for. On Earth, Nakamura says quietly, cleaning paint from their hands with a cloth, "We call it truth." The council station lights flicker, once, twice, then stabilize. In the central control hub, Tellurit technicians exchange glances, multifaceted eyes reflecting momentary concern before returning to their monitoring stations. A minor power fluctuation, nothing more. 17 seconds later, it happens again. This time, the flicker lasts 2.7 seconds longer. In a system designed to maintain power consistency to the nanosecond, this is not a fluctuation, it's an impossibility. Professor Maya Patel notices the change from her observation deck. As a human mathematician assigned to study council technologies, from a respectful distance, she's spent months analyzing the Tellurit hypercomputer network that coordinates all station functions. She's never seen it falter, not once. Alarms activate moments later as transportation networks across 17 systems simultaneously fail. Communication grids crash. Life support systems report imminent failure with identical error codes, a statistical impossibility in a distributed system. Galactic emergency protocols engage automatically as primary and backup systems fail in perfect synchronization. Evacuation orders echo through corridors as non-essential personnel rush to escape pods. In the control hub, Tellurit technicians work with frantic precision, neural interfaces streaming data faster than organic eyes could process. Their hypercomputer network, the crowning achievement of their civilization, is experiencing cascading failures across its supposedly infallible architecture. "Impossible," mutters the Tellurit chief architect, his neural implants streaming real-time data that contradicts everything his species knows about computational reliability. The algorithmic perfection cannot fail. But it is failing. Status displays show identical error patterns propagating across every node simultaneously, as though the system is failing according to some perfect, predetermined pattern. Patel watches from behind a security barrier as another subsystem crashes, plunging 3 habitation rings into darkness. The Tellurites had previously rejected her requests to study their systems as presumptuous, but their perfect machine is now perfectly collapsing. "Let me help," she calls out, stepping forward. Security drones move to intercept her. Observational members are prohibited from approaching critical systems. "This is beyond human comprehension," snaps the chief architect, dismissing her with a gesture. Neural filaments extend from his cranial ports, connecting him directly to the system. "Our network achieves mathematical perfection in its architecture." "That's precisely the problem," Patil insists as emergency klaxons blare and evacuation orders escalate to mandatory status. Mathematical perfection creates predictable failure points. The Grand Tellurit Overseer arrives, his ancient form bristling with emergency interface systems. 6 minutes of rapid-fire neural communication follow as the Tellurit leaders debate options in their characteristic silence. Life support failures spread and evacuation protocols begin. Finally, the Overseer makes an unprecedented decision: grant the human access. Security barriers retract. Patel approaches the central terminal, keenly aware of the disdainful glances from the Tellurit engineers. The interface is designed for neural connection, not physical interaction. Undeterred, she requests a manual terminal. Primitive, someone mutters, but a workstation materializes. Patel dives into the system's quantum architecture, a computational marvel compared to Earth's networks. Her fingers fly across the interface as she navigates structures so complex they border on incomprehensible. After 6 hours of analysis that leave her eyes bloodshot and hands trembling, she calls for the Tellarite leadership. "Your system is failing because it's too perfect," she explains, displaying diagnostic results on the main screen. "You've eliminated all randomness, creating a system that operates identically every time, including its failure modes." The Tellarite engineers stare in confusion as she continues. When the same rare computational error occurred simultaneously across multiple nodes, there was no variation in response. "Your perfect system is perfectly failing." She accesses the core architectural protocols. Behold this. With blasphemous confidence, Patel introduces modified versions of programming techniques from Earth's computational dark ages. Deliberate inefficiencies, randomized response patterns, controlled error tolerance. She types rapidly, injecting chaos into a system designed explicitly to eliminate it. "This is madness," whispers the chief architect as Patel implements the final changes. "You've introduced chaos." "I've introduced adaptation," she corrects him, initiating the system reboot. Sometimes perfect order leads to perfect failure. The station holds its collective breath. 17 species united in the certainty that the human has doomed them all. Then, one by one, systems reactivate. Lights stabilize. Life support normalizes. The Tellarite monitoring systems register confusion. The network is now operating at 23% higher efficiency, despite its imperfections. This defies all computational theory. The chief architect admits, neural patterns displaying visible distress at the contradiction. "Only your computational theory," Patel replies, finally allowing fatigue to show in her smile. "On Earth, we learned long ago that systems need to bend to avoid breaking." The central command display shows another council world falling, the 7th this week. Orbital defense platforms disintegrate under impossibly precise attacks. Ground installations neutralized with surgical efficiency. Billions of lives extinguished with mathematical certainty. No one speaks in the command chamber. What is there to say? The Voraxian Grand Fleet, once considered invincible with its temporal phase technology, now drifts as debris across 3 star systems. The Medusan Defense Network, designed to predict and neutralize any conventional attack, lies in ruins, its predictive algorithms rendered useless. The Harbingers have breached the Arcturus perimeter, reports the Tellarite strategic commander, neural interfaces streaming devastating casualty figures through her crystalline headpiece. 13 billion casualties in the Cygnus sector alone. Predictive models give us 18 days before total galactic subjugation. The alien force that emerged from beyond the galactic rim 6 weeks ago has shattered every defense the Council could muster. Their black ships move with impossible precision, neutralizing advanced weapons before they can fire, appearing where defenses are weakest, vanishing before counterattacks can land. They communicate nothing, demand nothing, respond to nothing. They simply annihilate with perfect efficiency. In the auxiliary strategy chamber, a room never intended for actual military planning, Captain Miguel Alvarez studies battle footage with growing certainty. The Earth military attaché had been invited to observe Council war games months ago as a courtesy, a chance for the primitive humans to learn from the galaxy's finest strategists. Now those same strategists lie dead across 17 systems. "Request permission to address the Defense Committee," Alvarez says to Commander Santos, his voice low but urgent. "They won't listen," Santos warns, studying the latest casualty reports. "They still believe humans lack the evolutionary development for advanced strategy, even now." "They'll listen," Alvarez insists. "They have no choice." But they do listen, not from respect, but from desperation. The greatest military minds in the galaxy have failed. What harm could come from indulging the primitive species? What remains to lose? Alvarez stands before the committee, activating thousands of holographic displays showing battle data from every engagement. His fingers, lacking the neural interfaces of advanced species, manually organize the information. "I know why you're losing," he announces without preamble. "The Harbingers aren't just predicting your moves. They're exploiting your perfection." The Varaxian war commander bristles, mandibles clicking in agitation. Four hands move instinctively to weapon hilts. "Explain yourself, human. Your tactics are flawless. Mathematically optimal responses following perfect logical progression," Alvarez explains, highlighting engagement patterns across multiple battles. "The problem is, your enemy appears to have perfect predictive capabilities. They're not outfighting you. They're anticipating you." He accesses the command console with authorization codes that should have been revoked months ago. "Behold this." The displays shift to show ancient Earth conflicts. The 300 Spartans at Thermopylae holding against overwhelming Persian forces. American revolutionaries defeating the superior British military. Finnish resistance fighters stalling the Soviet war machine. Vietnamese guerrilla tactics confounding American technological superiority. Throughout our history, humans have prevailed against superior forces by embracing apparent irrationality, Alvarez explains, pointing to battle formations that make council strategists wince with their apparent inefficiency. When facing an enemy that can predict the optimal move, the winning strategy is to make suboptimal ones. You suggest deliberately employing inferior tactics. The Tellerite strategic commander's neural patterns display visible distress at the concept. "I suggest unpredictability," Alvarez corrects. "Break your forces into autonomous units with authority to make independent, even contradictory decisions. Embrace seeming chaos as strategy." The Varaxian war commander leans forward, studying the ancient Earth battles with new interest. "To defeat a perfect enemy, we must become deliberately imperfect," Alvarez finishes. "On Earth, we learned this lesson through millennia of warfare against ourselves. Every perfect strategy eventually fails against adaptation. Against all military tradition, the Council implements what they reluctantly name the Alvarez Doctrine. Massive fleets are disbanded in favor of smaller independent strike forces. Captains are ordered to ignore optimal solutions in favor of creative ones. Perfect formations give way to seemingly random deployments. Communications officers report confusion from the front lines. The commanders don't understand the orders," reports a Medusan coordinator. "Tell them to do what feels right, not what calculates as correct," Alvarez instructs. For the first time in the conflict, Harbinger forces hesitate. Their perfect predictive algorithms fail against forces acting against their own apparent self-interest. Precision strikes miss targets that should have been there, but moved irrationally. Counterattacks come from directions that any logical analysis would have dismissed as tactically unsound. Within 3 weeks, the first Harbinger dreadnought falls. A year after the Harbinger defeat, the Grand Convocation Chamber glows with ceremonial light as representatives from 300 species gather for an unprecedented event. Holographic displays show celebrations across 17,000 worlds. The Varaxian Armada performs precision maneuvers overhead, their ships forming the ancient symbol for rebirth. Medusan crystal structures resonate with harmonics audible across the spectrum of sentient hearing, their traditional song of gratitude. Today, Earth will become a full council member, the fastest elevation in galactic history. Commander Elena Santos stands with her crew outside the chamber, recalling their first appearance here barely 18 months ago. Then, they had been curiosities, primitives granted observational status out of reluctant courtesy. Now the chamber awaits them with an honor guard formed from every council species. "Hard to believe," murmurs Lieutenant Rodas, straightening his dress uniform. Santos nods. "From begging for scraps to a seat at the table." "We didn't beg," Chen reminds her with a small smile. "We just kept saying 'behold this' until they had no choice but to look." The ceremonial horns sound. a complex melody that hasn't welcomed a new species in over 4,000 years. The human delegation steps forward, walking the crystalline path into the chamber where the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy await them as equals. The chamber falls silent as Grand Arbiter Zexkelter rises. His ancient form, normally imposing with its biomechanical enhancements and ceremonial regalia, seems somehow humbled. The light catches the new pattern etched into his exoskeleton, a stylized rendering of Earth. We gather to recognize what was once unimaginable. His voice resonates through the chamber, translator unnecessary, as he speaks in carefully practiced English. The elevation of humanity, a species barely a century into their stellar age, to full council status. Murmurs ripple through the assembly. Such an honor typically takes millennia to achieve. Many elder races still hold only associate status after thousands of years. Santos steps forward to accept the honor, her uniform now adorned with commendations from 17 grateful species. The contrast to her first appearance in this chamber, met with barely disguised contempt, could not be more stark. Before you formally join our ranks, Zexkelter says, the Council requests understanding. How is it that humans, with your brief history and limited technology, consistently solve problems that have confounded our greatest minds for centuries? The question holds the chamber in perfect silence. It's the question every species has pondered since humanity's string of impossible victories began. What explains this primitive species' uncanny ability to see solutions where more advanced civilizations saw only insurmountable problems? Santos smiles gently. The answer lies not in what humans are, but in what we never had the chance to become. She activates a holographic display showing Earth in all its chaotic glory. Continental plates in constant motion, magnetic poles wandering, climate oscillating between ice ages and warm periods. The display zooms in to show life adapting in real time. Species evolving, ecosystems collapsing and reforming, countless extinctions followed by explosive diversification. For most council species, evolution occurred on worlds with remarkable stability. Santos explains, gesturing to comparative displays of council homeworlds. The Varaxians enjoyed 50 million years without a significant extinction event. Medusan biology developed in seas unchanged for hundreds of millions of years. Tellurite neural patterns evolved in an environment with minimal selection pressure for adaptation. Images of council homeworlds appear, serene, stable paradises compared to Earth's violent history. You evolved toward perfection because your worlds allowed it, Santos continues. Your species had the luxury of optimizing for stable conditions. Humanity never had that chance. The display shifts to show Earth's turbulent timeline, ice ages giving way to scorching heat, continents colliding, atmospheres transforming, magnetic poles reversing, and through it all, life desperately adapting, never reaching perfection, but always finding a way forward. Our planet taught us one lesson above all others. Perfection fails when conditions change, and conditions always change. The council chamber is utterly silent as the implications become clear. The most advanced civilizations in the galaxy had evolved for stability, achieving remarkable perfection for their environments. But in that perfection lay a critical vulnerability. They had lost the ability to adapt when faced with the unexpected. Humans don't say, "Behold this," because we've achieved perfection, Santos explains, her voice soft, but carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. We say it because we found yet another imperfect solution that works anyway. Our gift isn't technological advancement or intellectual superiority. It's the ability to embrace imperfection as a strategy. Zexkelter's ancient eyes blink slowly. Then perhaps, he says with newfound humility, the greatest contribution humans bring to our galactic community isn't a technology or method, but a reminder of what many of us have forgotten. That the universe rewards not those who achieve perfection, but those who adapt when perfection becomes impossible. Santos accepts the ceremonial key to council chambers, a physical token of their new status. We have a saying on Earth, she says. Behold this, Not the end of our journey, but simply the next imperfect step forward together.